Hey everybody, it's another one of these.
Every pony.
I'm this far from the mic.
And I'm inside of the mic.
And we are collectively
Gay.
Yeah, it's Pokemon Colosseum again.
Back at it again.
My guts feel stiff.
Guts?
My head feels light. How do you feel?
I feel like I am drinking a coffee from Dunkin'.
Soon to be just Dunkin'.
Yeah, they are just Dunkin' now. They changed their name.
It says Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, they don't have the cups to. They just announced that they're doing this, but.
But they already made the change.
Yeah, they're just Dunkin'. Which.
I hate them. So there's been not much going on these last few days other than games. We've been playing games.
And memes.
You've been playing the shit out of Final Fantasy III, which, by your account, is pretty much the worst Final Fantasy game.
It's torture.
I've been playing a great game called Crosscode, but I'm about 25 hours in, and I'm about, probably halfway through the game, and I'm at that point where it's starting to be like, alright, this is taking up too much of my fucking time. Which is where I get with every video game. Every video game that's more than 10 hours long, I get to that point where I'm like, even if I'm still having fun, even if I still love the game, it's just like, oh, it's another day and I'm still playing this game.
Another day.
Which I'm sure is how you're feeling about Final Fantasy III right now, but even worse because you're not even enjoying it. Just trying to grind through it.
Why did I use Thunderball and Cadmia? Yeah, I'm just trying to finish it. But, I can't say anything good about it.
You're just trying to do it because you want the credit of having beaten every Final Fantasy game.
I need that credit.
Yeah.
I really don't feel like I could be myself, relate to myself as an entity without being able to say that I've beaten every Final Fantasy game. You ever feel that way about something? Where,
yes.
You just need to get it done because you wouldn't be yourself without it.
Yeah, there's a number of things I've felt that way about. That's kind of why, I would say that's part of what inspired my big list of, everything I want to consume, because it's kind of like, here's all the things that I feel like I need to at least give a try to feel like I've done my own intentions justice, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the best part of making that list was the culling of all the things that don't belong on the list. That was the most fun, was, going through my mal and going through the entire, on hold list and watching list and just, massively removing things and just marking them as dropped. Where it was all stuff that, there was some reason that a previous me felt as though that person would have to watch this thing, but this current me does not feel that way anymore.
Yeah, it's you're constantly reinventing and just shaping who you are through the media you consume.
Through lists. I am a man defined by my lists. Right now I'm kind of in a place in life where I really want the big come of
I feel you.
Of having made, I just want to make something really big and cool, and I don't really know, I don't have a good enough idea. And that's kind of what's my day-to-day torture, is that, I'm just kind of grinding through a bunch of small stuff.
Sitting and waiting for SAO to start.
Yeah, that's... the thing about it is, the funny thing about that is that I'm not, counting on SAO to be my big come. I'm counting on it to be, quick, easy money that will make it so that I can work towards my big come. Because, I've always had the mindset of that, whatever I'm doing on the main channel is basically to tide over the audience while I work on something bigger, be that for the main channel or elsewhere. So it used to be like, all right, I gotta put out 4 videos a month to keep people happy, but like I really want to work on a bigger video. So like, you know, let's placate people. Like what can I come up with to placate people while I work on the bigger video? But then it would take me so long to come up with the ideas for those smaller things that I never would get around. I never have time for the big thing, you know? And like, that's why I was always saying, like, my dream was to grow the Patreon enough to where, like, I could, because I used to be on a per video basis, and so my dream was that one video would make enough money to pay out the entire month, so I'd only have to work on one big video a month. But like, the thing is that the patrons did not want there to be one big video a month. So like, when I did slow down, it just caused me to lose patrons. Because they're like, oh, this big video is not as much, like, it's not as worthwhile to me as the constant flood of smaller stuff. And like, also at this point, I don't really have like a big, like, I don't think making a big anime analysis is like the height of what I want to accomplish right now, you know? Like, I've made that, I've been there, done that, don't care. I want to make something more personal and artistic, you know? But like, I have a lot of ideas for things that are like mid-level. Like, you know, I've got ideas for books that would maybe take me like a week or 2 to write, and it would be a pretty big come, and it would be cool, but I really want that big come, you know?
Yeah.
I want to have written something that I'm like really proud of, that is like this. I want to, basically, I guess what I want to do is create something that I can definitively be like, this is my best work yet, you know? Like, right now, I kind of feel that my best work yet is probably Gay and Dead, as like a singular thing that I've created. Gay and Dead is like kind of the biggest, most thoughtful, most like high effort, most survivable, like, because I was just listening to it at the gym, and I was like, man, this album is so good. Like, I have my complaints, but they're all details. Like, there's not a song on the album I don't like. There's not like a part where I'm like, oh, this part's weaker, or like, oh, this didn't really come together the way I imagined. It's more like there's, you know, production issues, but they're all like secondary to the fact that it is a well-constructed thing. But like, I know I could make a better album. Like, I could make one that's more conceptual, more lyrical, more tightly produced, more, you know, like, just better.
Yeah.
And like, I haven't really even sought to try to do that yet, because the idea with Gay and Dead was that the next album was going to be well laid and well paid, and people have, you know, been asking me about that ever since, and the reason I haven't made it is that the purpose of it was to be the even more conceptual, even tighter, even bigger project, and until I can make that, it can't exist, you know? Like, I'm not just going to make something that's exactly on the level of Gay and Dead, because then it would just be retracing my footsteps, you know? So instead, I've been doing lots of experiments trying to learn more about, you know, music production, in the process of eventually getting to make that bigger, more realized thing that would be well laid and well paid. But like, I'm not there yet, and getting to that would mean like, I'd have to grind a lot of music production to get there. I feel like I talked about this last episode.
You
fucking have a deja vu.
You touched upon it. I'm pretty sure that you did kind of talk about
the idea that,
your
like,
ideas.
that I could, like, that if I grinded at doing music for long enough, I'd be good enough. But like, it's not something where I feel comfortable like taking a month off to go learn everything about music. I'd rather just keep gradually learning that in the background. But like, you know, I'm confident in my skills as a writer. I just don't have a big enough idea. And I've been working on a bunch of shit in the background, as I always am.
In the bathroom.
Definitely in the bathroom. A lot of it in the bathroom. But every once in a while, I get tempted to go and just release all of the half-finished stuff I have, and like, because I'm always afraid to release something that's, or like, give the information on something that wasn't finished, because like, not only does that damn it to probably never happen, so I usually don't want to do it unless I'm like pretty confident that it won't ever happen. Which is not even, I shouldn't even be worried about that, because I will come back to an idea if I really want to do it, you know, regardless of whether I've talked about it. But also just because I feel like it's never going to be as, like, you can't describe your ideas for something and have them be as impressive in someone else's head as what you know it was supposed to be, you know? Like, that's why I've always hesitated to, like, describe what How They Marketed was really meant to be like, because on paper it doesn't sound nearly as interesting as what I actually picture. But, like, that's because in my imagination I can see, like, actual editing techniques and shit that would be used, you know? Like, I can literally envision the videos, and, like, I know certain lines and quotes that would have been throughout. Oh my god, are we gonna get a fucking Ampharos?
Yeah, this happened in the last episode before I
Ampharos is fucking sick.
Fudged up. Ampharos is great in this game. It's like the only electric type that you get that doesn't blow. So, she'll
really
probably
cool.
be a staple on my team.
I'm surprised I didn't notice this happened last time.
You were going ham last time.
Well, do you have, you were telling me there was something you wanted to talk about on this episode.
I have a couple things I want to talk about.
I want to hear about it.
So, I want to talk about something that a kind of news story that I've been keeping up with about Caro the wolf and about all this like zoophilia claims.
Caro Bonito?
Yeah, her. She is a furry.
It's a band.
I know.
Not just a person.
It's okay. It's okay.
So who's Caro
she.
the wolf?
I guess, like, I've never watched any of his videos, but he's a furry YouTuber.
Uh-huh.
So I guess he has, a lot of his, like, fans are children.
Uh-huh.
Who, are curious
about becoming furries.
About becoming furries. So I guess that some of his technologies got hacked, and they found that he was in a bunch of groups with these people who were talking about, like, it's pretty fuck shit, but, like, you know, killing animals and, like, raping them, and there's, like, a video of him, like, raping a dog to death.
What the fuck? There's video of him raping a dog to death.
I think that's what it is.
Jesus Christ. I mean, is he in jail?
No.
Why
He's
not?
trying to disprove, I mean, like, it's not, like, proven that it's him yet, but it's, like, pretty condemning evidence.
That's,
just, like, how crazy the shit on the internet is.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Was there anything in particular about this story that, like...
I was horrified after, like, I read about this, like, a couple days ago, and I just, like, or maybe it was just yesterday, but I, like, I, like, get morbidly curious about certain things where, like, I just can't stop reading more.
Yeah.
Like, have to know everything, even if it's real fucking disturbing.
Right.
And, like, I know how that's, like, a lot of this, like, this kind of, like, weird fetishes, like, happen.
Yeah.
Are people who just, like, you know, they see something online and they just, like, can't stop looking, and then they just become corrupted. And I've always been, like, real afraid of, like, of, like, what will happen if, like, just simply being a bystander, it won't be enough.
Yeah.
But, I'm not into, like, zoophilia
Right.
and shit, but, like, it's a known fact that I'm into Guro and have, you know, I've been into it since I was, like, a teenager.
Uh-huh.
And...
Are you afraid that you want to be, like, fucking, like, cut open?
Am I afraid of that?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not afraid of what I would do to anybody, because, like, that's not how I feel, like, about that kind of thing. Like, it's more of...
I didn't ask if you're afraid that you were going to cut somebody open. I said, are you afraid that you will want to be cut open?
I mean, I'm not afraid of what is already there.
Right.
Like, it's not like real fantasies. It's just, like... It's hard to explain. It's like, it's not something I really want to get into right now, but...
Alright. You're the one who wanted to talk about this subject.
I'm always excited to talk about it, but, like, I haven't really thought too much about how to outwardly express the feelings that I have towards it, because it's more it's more of an attraction to the art, and it's more of like that morbid curiosity that like, oh, I want to keep peeling these layers back and like seeing like how fucked it can get. But it's like only with art.
Yeah.
Not with real things, but like I do feel that way about real things where like I just want to know more and more, even if it's like...
Funnily enough, I am somebody who gets squicked out very easily by anything real or too realistic.
Yeah.
Like, I have never... Anytime anybody on the like has ever been online and has ever told me like, oh my god, you gotta see this shit, it's so sick, I just go, no, I don't want to see that, and then I don't look at it. And like, I've never known anybody who has this level of self-control that I have. So like, and granted, I don't have this for most things, it's just for this, but like, there'd always be like one of my friends would find something really gross, and then everybody, like, you know, their reaction is, oh, this is so fucking gross, you gotta look, man, you gotta check it out, you gotta see it, man. And like, most people will eventually give in. I will not. I don't want to see it.
Like Two Girls, One Cup, if you hear it.
I never saw, my friend, literally like the day that dropped, my friend Donson sent me a link to it. And I clicked it, and this was when it was like on, it had like its own web page. But my internet connection was so bad that it was loading in really slow. And the first thing that loads in is like the little like clip art of like the cup full of poop, you know? And like that starts to load in, and like somehow I didn't even quite understand that it was a cup full of poop, but just looking at it, I was like, nope, and I just clicked off the page. And then like as it started blowing up, everybody kept telling me like, oh dude, you gotta watch it, and I was just like, no, I already know it's what it is. You're all telling me it's gross. Why would I watch it? Why would I look at something gross deliberately? And like, I understand what draws people to that stuff, but for me, it's like just understanding that it exists is enough. I don't need to literally see it, you know?
Yeah, and like, I think it's like very interesting that we live in a time where that is very normal. Like, we live in a post, you know, Two Girl, One Cup era where there's like all these shock videos online, and it's just like we all... Yeah,
I mean, like,
it's like very standard.
Most of my friends growing up were people who had like seen the Pain Olympics, who had seen fucking videos. When I was like, okay, when I was like 12, my cousin Boyd watched the video of the guy who got beheaded, the like when the terrorist beheaded the American prisoner.
There's a lot.
Well, the
videos.
first one, like the first one that was really famous, of the beheaded guy, and he watched it when I happened to be in the room, and I saw it, and it like, even though it wasn't like especially like gross of a video, like just knowing it was real, it was fucking haunting. Like, I thought about it for days, and I was just like, especially
with those kind of videos, like they are really haunting, and they make you think about like, it's just real fuck shit, but like we have such easy access to it now. But like, when you think about it, there was a time in human history where people went to the Colosseum to see people fucking get murdered, and like, people fucking burn people on the sticks. People used to go picnic at wars. Like, during the Revolutionary War, people would like go out and picnic while the war was going on. And
the thing is that
just like,
it's all because of the way that they thought of those people, because they didn't think of them as human beings, you know?
Yeah, and it was like an event. Like, I think that the more developed we get, the further we move ourselves like away from death in our day-to-day lives, and like the more we are afraid of it. But like,
whoa, what in the fuck just happened? The screen just like changed aspect ratio like 4 times.
Yeah, that
rapidly.
was really weird. But like, death is like a fact of life.
Yeah.
And I'm reading this book called Killing It. It's about this woman who goes to France to study like butchery after having a midlife crisis, and she's like going into the slaughterhouses and talking about like what's happening there. And in France, the people that like who grow animals and raise them are a lot closer to the animals they're growing. They like know more about them, and the animals are kept in like better condition. And the process is still like, it's still you're seeing death. Like, life and death are part of the same coin, and it's just like really interesting how internet culture handles those kind of things. Like, there's this website called Nothing Toxic that I like used to go on a whole lot, like, because I'm an edgelord, and I was like, and I showed my sister's boyfriend at the time, like my younger sister's boyfriend. He became like addicted to Nothing Toxic, like, and it's a video where they like it's deaths and like all this like shocking stuff, and he would just like watch this shit over and over again. It's like, it was really concerning because like there's like, it's okay to be like fascinated and like watch it like once in a while, and like you can learn a whole lot about your place in the world by like by just experiencing like what death really is. And like
YMS has been like a huge proponent of keeping that kind of stuff online because he sees it as like, he looks at it as a learning experience that like a guidebook of how not to die, basically. Like, he likes watching videos of people die so that he can think about how he will handle that scenario and, like, look out for this thing that could happen to you, you know?
Yeah, I remember, like, the Reddit group that's, like, r/watch people die.
Yeah.
That, I think that's what he was talking about.
Yeah, he was defending that on Twitter at one time. But, I mean, he's talked about it, like, a bunch of times.
There's, like, a video on that subreddit of, like, somebody, like, just falling, like the main video is like somebody just like falling into an empty elevator shaft. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, don't be stupid.
Right. Like, it's funny too because I can handle that stuff when it's abstracted enough. Like, I used to read the Darwin Awards, which you know, you ever read the Darwin Awards?
I know what they are.
It's just like people dying in the, like, who dies in the stupidest, most hilarious way.
I remember that show on Spike, 1,000 Ways to Die.
No, I never saw that.
There was a show on Spike that was just like little short anecdotes about like people who just die in really bizarre ways, and it was edgy.
Like,
one of the, like really popular.
The thing about the Darwin Awards is that, and it's funny because it could only get away with this because it's abstracted to the point that it's in text, but like, they were written to be funny, and I would laugh my ass off reading them.
Yeah,
like,
it's the same
real
way with
stories
that show
of people dying, you know.
But it like it's like this person's an idiot, and like
and they usually died in really funny ways. Like the one that's always
and it's always their fault. Like
the one that stuck with me the most was that like there was this like helium exhibit or like a giant balloon. There's like a giant helium balloon or something that was at a college, and two guys like, you know, like got stoned and went into the helium balloon, and they literally just stayed in there long enough that they died because there was no oxygen in the room, you know, like you can't be in there for long, you're just breathing in helium. So yeah, they just heliumed themselves to death because they are stupid.
Yeah.
And with something like that, I always wonder, like, how do you not at some point realize
that you're
like
dying? Like,
I seem to be dying right now. Maybe I should leave this room.
They're on drugs, probably.
Yeah, well, they were high, but like they were just on weed, as far as I know. I think that's how I remember the story. But yeah, like, I understand the fascination with these things, but like to me, I feel like I guess seeing it once was enough for me, and like I feel like I get it, and I don't want to see it again because it all it does is remind me of my mortality and make me really afraid, you know, of like all the ways I could die.
Yeah, like when I was younger, I used to be like terrified of death and like anything that could harm me or cause future harm. Like I used to be afraid of exhaust fumes on trucks and buses, and I used to like go out of my way to not walk behind the school bus. Like that's how autistic I was. And I was afraid of mosquitoes. I was like deadly afraid of contracting West Nile.
I used to have a real problem throughout my whole childhood. I'm surprised I've never really talked about this in this way before because I didn't remember until just now, like, exactly what this was like.
Yeah, right in the kids.
So for most of my life, I have, like, random bouts of paranoia where, like, I suddenly become really paranoid that something bad is gonna happen right now, you know, or that something bad is happening right now. And, for example, when I have a very distinct memory of when I was like 12 years old.
Can you just appreciate what this guy is wearing?
This guy is a fucking clown.
Okay, he has the stirrup leggings that I have.
That's hilarious.
Oh no.
Like, when I was like 12, I have this very distinct memory of me walking home from the bus stop, and like I was really afraid that razor blades were going to fall from the sky and cut my wrists. And so I was walking with my hands turned downward, like, so that, like, you know, like, literally, like, holding my hands downward so that, like, so that razor blades wouldn't just fall from the sky and cut my wrists and kill me.
Hey, that's a serious concern.
And, like, I'm just always, like, anytime anything happens, like, anytime someone's late, for instance, I'm always like, what could have happened? Like, oh shit, are they dead? Like, what if they got into an accident? What if they're mangled and they can't call me and let me know that they're in an accident? You know, like, I'm always afraid that something bad's happening, but I developed, and I know I've talked about this before, but I developed a method for dealing with it, which is that anytime I catch myself imagining something that is like really unlikely, I just take that as evidence that it will not have happened.
Yeah, because
it's like, why would I have imagined it? Yeah, like, why would the thing that I imagine happen to be the thing that happens when it's so unlikely, you know? And sometimes it can be really difficult, like, a certain recent event where I was sitting in a hospital for 12 hours and, like, contemplating the circumstances and, like, really trying to convince myself that the things I was paranoid could happen were not. But, like, you know, it's still present in my life is what I'm getting at. Like, I still feel that way every so often, but, like, I've just gotten really good at silencing it. But it used to be, like, really persistent. Like, you know, every day I just suddenly get paranoid about something and be like, oh god, I'm gonna fucking get hit by a car, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that whole experience for me really put into perspective, like, living alongside of paranoia, because, like, everything that was happening was the worst case scenario when I was in the hospital. And, like, I was so afraid that something like that was going to happen to me that, like, now that it happened, it's like, well, yeah, bad shit is going to happen. Like, the paranoia will just eat away at you. It won't make anything better. Exactly.
It does, because, like, paranoia literally will not help you in any way other than, like, to...
And, I mean, I'm, like, somebody who gets, like, really fucking paranoid sometimes, like... And just to recognize that, like, oh, I'm thinking something completely irrational, or, like, oh, I'm thinking something that is, like, is rational, but, like, why does it matter?
Yeah.
Like, what can I really do about the fact that Google knows everything about me?
Yeah.
That Google knows that I was fucking, like, looking at, like, Lollygirl hentai. Like.
Right. Hey man, they're just gonna give you some ads for Lollygirl.
They're just gonna give you
hentai.
Lunchable ads.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Incidentally, I'll give my final review of that Baffler magazine, because we talked about it on this show a couple of times. Actually, maybe I should save it for the 2 weeks review. I feel like I should save all review-esque content for the 2 weeks review.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about
this is
the
a little
Ren Fair.
ad for the 2 weeks review. We will talk about the Renaissance Festival.
Yeah, and the Baffler magazine, and probably some games. I want a full... If you're going to be on it, I want a full Final Fantasy III review.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
I will be ready to
We'll just go ahead and say that we are going to record the next 2 weeks review as soon as you beat Final Fantasy III. That'll be when we can do it. Okay, cool.
I'm very close to beating it. It's just like... It's so... It's such a long game for what it is.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, I'm having as much fun as I could be having playing it. There's just not a lot of room for fun. And, like, I always think about this Nintendo Power article that I read about the game when it came out, about how somebody was just praising it for having a limited inventory system, and that was their favorite part of the game, was the limited inventory. Like, that just... Yeah.
It's
Also, I was watching okay, so this is a really funny story. I was, like, looking for walkthroughs because I was getting lost in one of the castles.
Yeah, this just happened.
Yeah, it happened a couple minutes ago. And first of all, I go to the walkthrough and the person's playing it on Android, and the game looks exponentially better on Android than it does in the DS. And I'm just like, yeah, and, like, the soundtrack even sounds fucking, like, way better. And So I go to this guy's channel and I'm like, I click on his name and I like pull up his channel and there's just a bunch of videos of him just like shirtless in like weird masks, like lifting.
Yeah, it's
like horrifying.
It's this massive dude, like he's one of those guys whose muscles are all like weirdly round.
Yeah.
Like he looks like he's made of like balls, you know? And like he's just this dude who's like super muscular, wearing weird masks and like flexing and posing.
He has like hundreds of videos just of him like flexing, and then just like somehow he has Final Fantasy 3 on Android, just like a walkthrough uploaded.
But I thought about it and I was like, it makes perfect sense because Final Fantasy 3 is a fucking grind fest, and working out is a fucking grind fest. So of course this is the kind of person who'd be into it. Just like how like Nate is always insisting that like he loves games that are just like this endless grind to get like 100%, where there's just like an insane number of things to do and where you have to like really push yourself beyond like the strains of fucking what is fun in order to do all of it. And like he also is like, wait, like there's just people who have that mindset, I guess, who just like want life to be painful and difficult. Because it's the only way they can feel a sense of accomplishment. It's like they don't feel a sense of accomplishment from doing something fun. They feel it from doing something like they think that because it wasn't fun, because it was strenuous, that's why it feels like an accomplishment.
Hey man,
you know?
I appreciate that way of thinking. I just like, I can't convince myself that that's all there is to life.
Yeah. Or like that there's any purpose to it at all.
I should have changed my party up before I went to this fight like I did last time, because I have a bunch of shitty shadow Pokemon that only know Shadow Rush.
It's funny because like on our live stream last night, the I Am Games live stream, Tom was talking about how like a lot of the games that he really loves are extremely difficult games like Devil May Cry and Ninja Gaiden, but that he doesn't really enjoy the fact that they're difficult. Like he loves the games because they're fun and he loves the mechanics of them, but like the fact that they're difficult is like his least favorite part, because he doesn't really enjoy like having to put like this extreme amount of effort into beating a game. He just wants to play a fun game, but like he will play a hard one if it is a game he loves, which games with those kind of deep mechanics tend to be.
Why would he use Earthquake?
And I feel very similarly to Tom, because like, and his reasoning was that like for me, playing a video game will never give me a sense of accomplishment, because I will inherently see playing a game as a waste of time. Like it's time taken away from the things that do give me a sense of accomplishment. So its purpose should just be to blow off steam and give me like a rush of dopamine hits for doing something I'm competent at, you know? And like that's what I come to a game for. Like, and I completely feel the same way, like, which I think is why it's so hard for me to actually finish games, because for me it's like a game is something I do to like just to kill time for a while when I don't really have anything else that I'm like passionate about doing at that time, you know? Mm-hmm. Or like when I just want to have like a certain, because from like I love the feel of games. Like that's the biggest thing for me in games, is like the way that it feels to be in this world and to interact with this world. And so like I also don't really look for difficulty, but like I will play some difficult games if they're fun, like Dark Souls, you know? But like a lot of my friends growing up like were all about difficult games because they wanted that big come of overcoming the challenge. And like when you read people online talk about why they love Dark Souls, like they will very often say it's because of that moment when after all the deaths you finally do it and you're just like, yes, I am a god, you know? Mm-hmm. But like I guess I can never get that, because there's always somebody who can play it better than me. And so like in my mind it's like overcoming the challenge doesn't necessarily mean that much, because there's a bigger challenge that you could invent for yourself. Like in Dark Souls, for instance, I've watched so many challenge runs of the game that like me just beating it didn't feel like any kind of accomplishment. And like there are people out there who probably would look at beating Dark Souls as an accomplishment because it was hard for them. And I beat it in like 20 hours, which is a pretty good time compared to like the average player, you know, who would probably take like 50 hours. But it's only because I've watched people beat it in 2 hours, you know, and like I know that there's so much more that could be done that like to me just beating the game will never feel like much of anything. Like, and I do think that if you're somebody who actually does like a speed run or a challenge run, like that is an accomplishment because you're doing something
skills.
Noteworthy and that like only you have really accomplished, you know. But like anything less than that, and it's not really an accomplishment to me. But then I also think about like someone like Nate, who again, it's not even about like doing something. It's not about doing something that's like fun and hard. It's just about like pushing yourself to go all the way. You know, like a lot of the games he likes, it's not that they get extremely challenging, it's just that they're fucking taxing. That it just like takes a lot of time. And that's it. Like it's not that it takes a lot of skill, it just takes a lot of time. And Final Fantasy games all have an element of that. Where like if you want to get the like crazy secret shit in a Final Fantasy game, you're gonna have to do some fucking bullshit. Like dodge 100 lightning bolts in a row, or fucking play the fucking Tetramaster game in 9. Like, these are like, they take an unbelievable amount of time and patience. And yeah, I guess that like I just don't understand that sheer level of like masochistic desire from what you get out of a game, you know.
It really depends on like why you're playing the game, and like if you're using it to just take up time, or if you really find some sort of value just from like thoroughness of it. Like, because I'm a hardcore completionist, that's why I don't play a whole lot of games, because like I either like games like League that are just like, they're just time traps, or like I play like a lot of Final Fantasy, and like I do everything like in the games that I play. Like I click on everything, I like go down all of the paths.
I mean, we've seen in this game that you've been trying to like catch every Pokemon that can be caught.
Oh yeah, why would I not catch them all?
Right.
People are like, oh well, you can catch them later. I'm like, yeah, I know you can catch them later, but I want to play the game as though I've caught them all, because that's the challenge of the game. Like catching them all on your first run is challenging.
Yeah.
And like I'd like to do it on the first try, because it also changes the outcome of those battles later. Like they'll have a different party if you capture the Pokemon that they have, and it just like makes more sense for me to capture them all. So that's why I'm doing it. I just like to torture you and myself. That's why.
Hey man, it's no torture for me. I don't really pay attention to the game. So
I know.
It's all the same to me.
I feel like really floaty.
I do too. I feel like I've felt for like the last hour that like I really want to take a shit, but it's not ready yet. And I don't know how to expedite that.
TMI.
So, did you have should I go on to another topic, or do you want to?
Well, my last topic was just about fuck shit on the internet.
Yeah.
Did I wrap up my point?
I think so.
Yeah, just that like the way we consume fuck shit on the internet is pretty fucked. And you can go really far, but you should be a good person, and you should never
check
hurt
yourself before
animals.
you wreck yourself, basically.
And if you want to fuck animals for real, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do it.
Don't fuck a pony.
That is rape. Like,
you gotta follow the guide. There's the fucking, I don't remember what his name is. There's this image that's like the guide to what life forms are fuckable, and it's like they have to be of age in whatever their species is, and able to communicate consent, and to understand like they have to be able to understand you well enough that they can communicate consent and be mature in their whatever their species is. This is like a universal, like the idea is that it's a guy who travels space and time. I don't remember the name of the character. I think it's a Doctor Who character, but It's like the idea is that like if you were a time-space traveler, how would you determine what you could or couldn't fuck? And those are the rules. So I think those are pretty healthy rules,
I do too. I do have a way to wrap this up. On
Yeah.
1,000 Ways to Die, there's an episode where a guy fucks a fish, and the fish bites on his dick, and he rips his dick off, and then he bleeds to death. So, yeah.
I saw a video of some douchebag
bad.
face fucking like a fucking bass or something once, and it was the most offended I've ever been at any image I've ever seen. Literally, I've never been more mad at anything I've seen online than of the guy fucking a tuna in the mouth. And like smiling about it like he was doing the funniest thing in the world. And I was just like, you're a piece of shit and I hope you die. Like, unironically. Anyway. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was engaging with an argument on its own terms. And I was thinking, what got me to think about this is we were in the car and my mind was wandering, and I was it was because I was making fun of someone on the street. Some girl we passed in the car, I said looked like hipster trash, right?
Oh no, don't kill. Oh my god.
And then I was thinking about how I say and think mean things about people all the time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people, like the main argument I always hear like against that is like karma. Like, if you put out bad energy into the world, bad energy will return to you. It's the kind of thing that I hear, right? And then I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, if I have, like, if no one's being harmed, because I'm just talking shit about this person to my friends, to my wife, in this case. Like, if I'm just talking shit outside of this person's purview, they're never gonna hear it, it's never gonna affect them, and I'm having fun. Am I really putting out negative energy? Because it feels like I'm putting out positive energy. I'm enjoying myself, making judgments about people. And so when I think of it that way, I'm like, yeah, I can make the argument, at those people about this. And then I thought about it, and I was like, now if I were to present this, like this, what I just said, like say on the internet, in a let's play such as this one. If I were to present this stance, the response would probably be, "Why are you even engaged?"
Reset me.
Sorry. Yes.
The suicides, man.
Alright. The response that I would probably get from any rational person would be like, motherfucker, there's no such thing as negative energies being put into the universe. That's retarded.
Yeah.
Like, because the whole conceit in the first place of this whole energy distribution thing is, it's goofy shit. But it's couched in something real. Like, the idea of karma, that, like, if you do something bad, it will come back to bite you. Yeah, there's a lot of logical ways that makes sense. Like, if you fuck somebody over, it's likely that person is now in a position where they have to fuck somebody over, and that person might be you back. That is like a practical example of karma. But it's not a magic spiritual force, it's just basic logic. Like, there is a logic to the idea that, if you do certain things that are bad or negative, then it's going to come back. And like, even when it comes to energy, it's like the way your brain works is like you kind of like perform what you expect of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you are in the mindset that bad things are going to happen to you because of the fact that you've done a bad thing, you're going to, make that more likely to transpire. So, like, I don't believe in karma in the sense that people talk about it, that it's just like some grand spiritual scale force that's controlling everything in the background somehow. But, like, it's not based in nothing. Now, if you are going to try to communicate to somebody who does believe in karma, the idea that, like, what I was saying, that, like, you know, me talking shit doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to come back and be negative, because it's not necessarily a negative thing. The best way to communicate with that person would be to tell them, well, you know, this is positive energy, not negative energy. Because if you approach that person with karma's not real, this is a whole different can of worms you're opening up. Like, you're challenging this person's core beliefs. You're challenging their entire understanding of the universe.
And you're going to get your point across better if you're able to make it in a way that they're able to understand and in the constraints of their beliefs. Like,
right. And so this is something that a lot of people didn't understand. Whoa. My arm just fucking soared. This is something that a lot of people didn't understand about my approach to Digibro versus everybody. Because what I tried to do on that show was always to argue with the person in such a way that I was trying to convince them that they were wrong. I wasn't trying to be right. I was trying to make them think that they were wrong. And so a lot of the times I would get into these arguments and I would get some people responding to me like, I don't understand why you humored this person. Like, Victor especially would always be like, why? Like, because he would get so frustrated listening to them talk.
Yeah.
And listening to me, like, you know, not just immediately cut to the chase and put them in the ground. And I'm like, well, you have to understand, again, the point of the show is not to be right. Because I already feel I'm right about these things. And my audience probably agrees with me about the things because they think similarly to me. It's about, why does this person think that they are right? And how can I make them think that they are wrong? You know, because just telling them they're wrong is not going to work. Mm-hmm. You have to make them believe it. And so the best way to do that is to work through their logic, why they think what they think, and then figure out, how do I make this person think differently, you know, about the thing they think. And you have to do it by peeling back layers. You can't just hit them with, like, your entire reality is misguided, you know? You gotta be like, well, maybe think of it this way. And then they start thinking of it that way, and they're like, huh, well, if that's the case, maybe this other thing I think is wrong. Well, if that's wrong, then maybe this is... And then it's a domino effect, and it's, you know, eventually they're changing, you know? But that's why I like to do things that way. I feel like there was more I wanted to talk about with that. Something to do with, like, language.
By the way, I thought that girl was hot.
Which girl?
The
hipster
girl.
trash
I thought
girl?
she was, like, hot. And when you said something about her, I was like, oh, I was, like, checking her out.
Yeah.
Like...
She wasn't bad looking.
I didn't
she just
really,
looked
like,
hipster
like,
trash.
I liked her dress. But,
Yeah.
like, she was wearing, like, you know...
She had, like, black horn-rimmed glasses and, like... She was just wearing an excessive amount of things.
Yeah, and all of them were, like, very basic. Like, it was just a cardigan, like a cream cardigan with, like, black boots, like, very basic black boots with, like, a red dress, and her hair was, like, in the basic bun, and she had, like, fake glasses on. It was just, like...
It just, to me, it looked like a very...
It was like a uniform.
Yeah, it looked like a very manufactured, like, kind of, like, this is my... I don't know, a lot of people, when they attempt to look good, it feels like they're wearing a costume. Uniform is also a good word, but, like, I would describe it more as, like... Man, okay, to bring up uniforms, like, I grew up going to lots and lots of metal shows, and most of the people at a metal show look exactly the same. And the sameness that I'm describing is their attempt to look different. Mm-hmm. Like, and I mean, it's basically just the Hot Topic look. Like, Hot Topic, like, capitalized on this facet of culture that, like, you know, dressing... When you base the way you dress off of how a group dresses, it doesn't matter if that group is in the minority. You're still putting yourself in a group. You know, you're still putting yourself in a box. Like I grew up around goth kids and shit, and, like, there was a while where I wanted to dress kind of like that, but, like, I never liked wearing the full set, you know? Like, a lot of those clothes are cheap and bad. Like, they're expensive to purchase, but they are cheaply made and bad and fall apart really easily. And everybody would always have like all the studs and all the fucking chains and the fucking, you know, the shit, and it just made everybody look exactly the same. And I'm like, well, what's the, like, if the idea is to express your individuality, why do you all look the fucking same? You know? And like I always felt like a weird kind of outsider in those groups because I would hang out with those people, and like the stuff I wore was tangentially similar, but not the same, and as a result, I never fit in with those groups because like I wanted to be friends with them. Like I wanted to, because I saw them as like my people of sorts. Like these are the people who are going to the same shows I'm going to. These are the people who, you know, are all like, they're not religious. They're not like, they don't think like normies, but they all have the same thoughts amongst themselves.
Yeah.
And they all act the same way as each other, and I don't act like them.
No,
and so like in spite of my attempts to like, you know, to get into those groups, it was, I would always be given these looks that were kind of like, are you sure you belong here? You know? And it's like, well, so to be in this group, do I have to have a certain number of studs on my belt? Like, you know, I'm wearing
Hot Topic.
like I'm always wearing sweatpants and a band shirt. My shirts come from Hot Topic back then. Like I'm wearing, you know, a band shirt or an anime shirt or something just like they are, but like that's not enough of the uniform. You also have to be wearing the trip pants and like some kind of studded piece or some kind of piercing,
like,
you know.
You kind of gotta sell out to be a part of those groups when you're in high school. And like I never understood that when I was in high school.
Yeah, it took me like a long time. Like I understood that I looked out of place because I didn't complete the uniform. Like I would go to the goth kid corner and it's like every other kid standing there is wearing all black and I'm wearing a black shirt but like brown pants, you know? And like that's enough to make me look not like these people and for them to not embrace me as like, and not to immediately, you know, think, oh, this guy is part of our thing, you know? They'd just be like, oh, are you like a goth? Cause like you're wearing the wrong pants, you know? It's like, well, like, why is there a wrong pants to be friends with you, you know? I know I'm talking like some pretty basic shit right now, like some pretty like baby's first I hate all of humanity, but you know, I guess I'm just always going to be thinking this stuff and feeling this way.
Do I have any revive?
I just hate people so much. Should we talk about how much we hate people?
Like, can we have like a direction? Because I just like hate everything about humanity.
I think that being in a relationship together as two people who think very similarly has made it easier for both of us to be more honest about how much we don't like anybody else. With ourselves, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, you're somebody who spent a lot of time like trying to fit in with people and like trying to make friends in college and high school. Like,
yeah,
you wanted to meet people halfway.
I made an effort to get to know people, to meet them on their own terms. Fuck. Like me too. I made an effort to like go out of my way to meet different types of people, to like join a whole bunch of clubs, to really embrace like who I was. And at the end of the day, I just like came to realize that most people have certain expectations on how they want you to behave as a friend, and or that they just like aren't okay with the things you like.
Yeah.
And like aren't comfortable with being challenged about like, oh, I don't like the fact that you're a girl who likes these kinds of things, and like like I can't understand who you like, what you're trying to be, or like what kind of message you're putting out. Like I can't understand your vibes, or I don't understand why you're incompetent at small talk.
Right.
And like it was always kind of a give and take. Like you could tell how much energy you were exerting into these relationships, and you were getting I was getting something out of hanging out with people and like having lots of friends and like having kind of a social life and going out and stuff. But it also was stressful.
Yeah.
And I'm like happier being myself at home. Like I've always been a homebody, and like I'm tired of kidding myself.
Yeah. And I'm like at the point where, so for me the trajectory went like this. Like when I was 14 was when I bottomed out of social interaction entirely. Because, like, growing up, I always had, like, that one friend, or at least I had Victor's friend around. But that time that we lived in the ghetto for, like, 6 months, no one even talked to me at school. Like, very occasionally I would trade a few words with somebody, you know. Nobody was my friend. Nobody cared about me. Nobody paid attention to me. I had my, you know, nobody came to our house ever the whole time we lived there, you know. Victor and Shade never made any friends either. They just hung out at home and fucking watched the same DVDs over and over again. Victor watched Bruce Almighty like 300 times. Not even the movie. He mostly watched the bonus features over and over again, like the deleted scenes, over and over and over again. And The Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah. So like we fucking, I had no friends and I was totally bottomed out, and like the only people I would talk to were online, and most of them didn't really care about me much either, and it was all just my like one-sided obsession with people, and I got catfished, as I've talked about. Like, you know, that was my life then. And from that point, it was all like when we moved back to, you know, like a school where people would pay attention to me. Not even just because there was white people there, but because there was like goth kids and stuff. Like the school I went to was almost like multicultural in a way, because it was like half white, half black, and amongst those groups there was like the cliques were all kind of evenly distributed. Like, you know, nobody was gonna be picking on you for being a weird kid because there were enough weird kids, kind of is how it was. So I mean, granted, the weird kids also picked on me for being the weirdest kid, but like, you know, c'est la vie.
Yeah, there was some
It wasn't
cultures.
like bullying. It was just me being made fun of, you know. And a lot of it was my fault because I was aggressively and like a weird asshole. So there's that too.
I
But
think
like,
most bullying is like both parties are at fault.
Depends. Depends on the situation. I think when you're a little kid, it's usually just like people just picking on you for reasons. Like when I was really small, I had no idea why I was being bullied. Like it made no sense to me. I didn't understand. It was usually from people I didn't know anything about and had never talked to, you know?
Yeah.
Like when I was in high school, it was mostly like kids at my lunch table who didn't like me because they thought I was a spaz, you know? And I wouldn't even really call it bullying. I was just like ostracized, you know?
Yeah, I would relate more to being ostracized than like straight up
Yeah.
being bullied, because like I think there's so many different like definitions of bullying where it's just like so contrived, and
Yeah.
like I wouldn't say that it was like I was ever like bullied, but like I definitely felt like ostracized and like got like rumors spread around about me. But
I would consider rumor spreading a form of bullying, personally. But anyways.
like the people who spread rumors about me like never came out and like told me they had problems with me. It would always
Right.
just be like I hear about it. And
None of the kids who bullied me ever did that either, though. Like, kids, like, literally, it felt completely out of nowhere to me every time. It would be like a kid I knew nothing about and had never spoken to would just fuck with me for no apparent reason and then never bring it up again.
Yeah.
And I'd just be like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know what I did. So, I guess I'm just here to fucking, you know, literally that episode of Atlanta season 2, like, where the kid ends up killing himself because he, like, you know, just because he happened to come to school with some fucking FUBU shit on and, like, got picked on for whatever reason, and, like, he was going through rough shit in his everyday life, and he was just like, I can't take it anymore. Like, that was me in elementary school. It was just like, don't know why this is happening, want to die, you know? But anyways, this is completely off topic from what I wanted to talk about. Why was I talking about high school? Oh, I was going
Meeting
through the history of
everybody.
my social interactions,
Yeah.
right. So, like, when I got to high school, it was all about, like, slowly finding which people I could relate to at all. So, like, I hung out with these different groups. I would almost say I hung out with more people early on than I did later, but all the connections were extremely weak. It was like, I'd try to stand around this group and in the courtyard, but I wouldn't say anything to anybody. Or I'd sit at the lunch table with a bunch of people, and when I tried to talk, I would usually annoy them, and they wouldn't want to be my friend, you know? And, like, it took a while for me to find people who... Like, I think the first friend I made was Josh Chantos, who lived with me for a while, and, like a few years later. And, you know, he was big friends with this stoner clique. And, like, he was very adamantly, like, obsessed with these people. Like, he romanticized them so much. They were all fucking shitheads who I like, all I really knew of them were his stories until I had interactions with them, and all my interactions with them, they seemed like just fucking, like, dumb burnout assholes. I don't know why Josh liked them so much. I guess just because he didn't really have any sense of family in his personal life, so, like, that's, you know, he clung to them as, like, a family because they interacted with him at all, you know?
Yeah.
But, like, he saw me as more of, like, this, like, lowly kid who he could kind of, like, you know, that he was like, oh yeah, I'm like, almost like he's doing me a favor by hanging out with me at first, I think. You know, it wasn't always like that, but, like, we became friends, and then I met, like, Don San because he was, like, the only other anime fan. He was the first person I had, like, a real deep connection with, where it's like, this is my fellow otaku, and, like, we do and think similar things because we were both so, like, into performing the otaku identity. Like, we wanted to have the otaku room, we wanted to have seen the most shows, we wanted to be into all this stuff. But the funny thing is, the way we interacted with anime was very different. Because I was all about, like, discussion, I was about writing blog posts. He just would watch shit and have nothing to say about it. And he really, like, did not like being made to talk about stuff. And, like, I'd convinced him to make an anime blog, and all he would do is just post, like, a wall of screen caps of stuff, you know? Because, like, he just isn't interested in that type of engagement. And, like, I just didn't get it at the time. Like, I didn't know why he felt that way. But, like, you know, it's like, even though he was the deepest connection I had, I don't think he and I really thought all that differently, which is, like, why when we grew up we became distant, because it's like, we wouldn't naturally be people who find things to do together. We were because we were each other's only friend, and we were both into anime, and we could watch it together, and that was enough to be, like, the deepest connection I could have.
Yeah.
But, and so, like, and I think that's how it generally is for most people with, like, their high school friends, with their at-home friends, is that, like, these are people who were around and were close enough, you know? But then, like, when you make connections with people that are, like, wow, I could do anything with this person, then it's, like, it's a whole other kind of ball game, you know? And, like, so, like, most of my connections, both online and off, were more like what I'm describing with Don-san, that it was, like, people I could do things with, but, like, their engagement with the things that we were doing isn't necessarily the same as mine. They're not feeling the same emotions I'm feeling. They're not, like, getting the same... Oh, I thought you fucking had him for a second there.
No,
you know,
I was like, I just threw that Pokeball because I didn't want to, like, do too much damage this turn.
Yeah. But yeah, like, I feel like, even online, like, most of my connections were, okay, this is another person who likes anime in a way that they write about it, but, like, nothing else about their life is necessarily similar to mine, you know?
Yeah.
And then I got into YouTube, and, like, you know, when I met the guys who were in the PCP, that was when it was, like, it was funny, because at first it wasn't like these are the only guys I talked to, you know? Like, Tom and Jesse I was friends with for a while before I met the other guys, and it was never like, oh man, I exclusively hang out with this group, and I had, like, tons of friends on Skype, you know? I had other people I talked to fairly regularly, but most of them were people I just wasn't that engaged with the relationship, you know? Like, I used to have tons of just random text buddies who would message me every day because they were bored, and I'd respond every day because I was bored, you know? But, like, when the Procrastinators chat was formed, like, when we all were in one chat room together, that was when I literally just lost contact with everyone else. Because I realized that I could communicate with these people on such a higher level that, like, anything I wanted to talk about, they were going to understand, and I wasn't going to have to explain myself at length, you know? And, like, most of what I wanted to talk about was being a career YouTuber, like, complaining about other people in the community and shit-talking, like, talking about techniques, like what we value in a video, like what we think YouTube should be like, just analyzing our careers and stuff. And, like, so much of the early PCP was just that. It was just us having conversations about doing YouTube, and, like, you know, we bonded really heavily through all that. And so it was like, if I'm gonna talk to somebody, I might as well talk to the people who are gonna get me instantly. Why bother with everyone else when with everyone else it's going to be a strain? It's always going to be stressful. It's always going to be too much explanation. It's always going to be me having to redouble back and re-explain shit I've already said. And, like, this can be the stress of hanging out in, like, for instance, my patron Discord. Like, my patrons at the very least might understand, like, my content to some extent, but, like, they're not doing this job. So for them, like, they're always like, well, why did you do this? Well, why this? Like, what was the idea behind this? And it's like, and I don't mind explaining that stuff. I'm not, like, saying that this is bad of them to do. I have the Discord for a reason. But, like, that's also why it's a patron Discord and not a group of my friends, you know? Because amongst my friends, I don't have to explain that stuff. They know. They know why I would make that decision. They know why, you know, like, what the logic is. And it's really fucking great that, like, having Tom around, like, because I can talk to you, and you implicitly understand where I'm coming from, but, like, I have to explain at the very least, like, how, like, okay, if I'm, like, doing something that's based in how YouTube works, like, you don't do this as a career, so there is something that has to be explained, and I love explaining this stuff, so it's not like I'm saying this is a problem, but there's, like, this magic that happens when I explain something to Tom, and he says the logic back to me. And that happens all the time. Like, if I tell Tom, oh, I'm gonna make a video that's like this, he will respond, oh, because people are like this. And I'm like, exactly. I didn't even need to explain the logic behind it, because you already know. Because we think exactly the same way, and that's why the PCP are my guys, you know?
Word.
But, like, since meeting you, you're an even more extreme example of this, where, like, because the PCP guys, while I might relate to them all really well, we're all doing different things. Oh my god, you fucking did it.
Finally.
Holy shit. Fuck on my haters! Fuck on my haters!
Sorry. And we're in the middle of talking about why you love talking to me.
Fuck All My Haters is a song that I haven't made yet, but it's in my mind. That's the chorus. I kind of want it to be like a Lil Yachty-esque song. When I started making the song Tunneling, I went into it with the anticipation of making that song. Like, I took that sample, that blue 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 blue, which is the opening notes of So American by Portugal the Man. So if you've heard the song, if you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about my song Tunneling, which appears on the Fuck Off mixtape as track 2. The main sample is the opening notes of So American by Portugal the Man that plays throughout the whole song. And, like, it's kind of like a cutesy, lighthearted, like, you know, kind of sound. So I was thinking that would be good for, like, making a Lil Yachty-esque track. But then when I went to try to look for, like, I wanted to find a beat that was the same BPM as that sample, because I don't know why. I don't know why I decided to base the BPM around the sample and not just get a beat and then stretch the sample. But, like, it was hard because it was like 110 BPM or something like that. It was some kind of weird. It was like a BPM that is not that common, and like the beats I ended up finding were really bizarre and totally changed the tone of the track. And so I just went, fuck it, this will just be like a cool dirty rap song instead of a Lil Yachty song. Anyways, now that May is back, yeah, like, so like talking to the PCP guys, we might understand each other perfectly, but we're not literally doing the same things in life anymore. And it used to be like when we were all pony YouTubers, or even just when we were all like serious about doing YouTube analysis videos, it was like there was this feeling like we're all literally doing the same thing with the same intentions, and we're just trading notes like about how to do this thing that we're all doing. And it's kind of funny because before we actually started the podcast, there was a while where like we weren't really that in contact with Ben or Tom. Like in the early days of the PCP, before the podcast came about, it was mostly me, Nate, Jesse, and Hippo who were talking all the time because we were all trying to make YouTube careers. And like I had recently abandoned Pony and shifted to anime, so my career was like, you know, in like a building back up process. Jesse was like finishing the Horseshoe finale. You know, Hippo had launched the Hypocrite channel because he had previously been Give and Take, and Nate was just launching Best Guy Ever. So like all of us were kind of like in the starting stages of building a channel up, you know. Like I had already had like 70k subs because of being big in the Pony days, but like, you know, my view counts had plunged back down, and we were all talking shop and strategy and editing and all that shit. And then like throughout that period, Ben was working on the Vapors chapter 1 for like 6 months, and Ben was like off the map when he was working on that. Like he was not around when he was working on the first chapter because he spent a lot of time perfecting it and like trying to make it just so. But like, and Tom was working on his novel, so like he wasn't really doing the same kind of shit, and like and he wasn't initially really even a part of the group. He kind of like, he was more like my friend who tangentially ended up in the group, you know, and then eventually got assimilated into it. And then like around the time when the podcast started was when Devu joined, I think, and then, you know, later everybody else. But like, and Mage was just always kind of in the background. Like she never really talked much in the chat. So like, so yeah, so like the foundation of it was basically me, Nate, Jesse, and Hippo talking about making videos. And then Ben and Tom came in, and like they're still doing artistic careers, so it's not like it's that different. But like as time has gone on, our intentions have all kind of diverged in a big way, where like Nate has really changed like his approach to making videos, and you know, Hippo has been on and off about whether he even wants to be a video content creator at all, and has been doing other like jobs and stuff like writing for animations and shit. You know, Jesse's basically like trying to escape the internet half-heartedly for the last year and a half. Ben is still, you know, doing mostly art, and then he also does like weird live streams and shit with Munchie. And Tom's doing 3D art. So like there's just a lot less of that feeling of like we're all doing the same thing and talking about it. And so even though, I mean, we all still talk in the chat like pretty much every day, someone says something in there, but like it's just not as on the same page. Most of our discussion is about the podcast or about our projects that we do together, because like that's the more common ground that we have. But like it's been really like, when with you living with me, it's like we are doing the same thing. Like we are literally living life together, no matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's like, you know, like if I'm gonna make a video, it's important to you because your time is now constructed around that. If you're gonna play a video game, my time is constructed around that, you know, like
to an extent. I mean, it isn't like I'm completely dependent on like what you're doing. It doesn't like completely influence what I'm doing. What
I mean to say is not that it influences what you will do, but it will influence what time is available for you, you know? Like if you and I are going to go to a show together, like that's what we're both going to be doing. If I'm going to be recording something, then that's like a 10-minute gap in the time that you and I are spending together that you now have to fill with something, you know?
Yeah, because I can't, gotta do something else.
Right.
But that's not, like, that big of a deal. Like,
no. Well, my point is simply that we're always doing everything together. That, like, everything one of us does has some kind of consequence for the other, and so we can always discuss everything. Like, there's nothing that would be irrelevant to you that's relevant to me, or vice versa, you know? Like, if I were to, let's say I'm hungry, you know? This is not relevant to anyone in the PCP, but it's relevant to you, because you now have to decide if you're hungry and if we're going to eat together, and if we are going to eat together, we have to decide together what we're going to eat, you know? So, like, there's, and granted, like, it's not as though every time I'm hungry this has to present a choice for you, but, like, it, you know, it's relevant because we're in the same place doing largely the same things, and we usually do want to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. Like, usually we are both hungry, usually we want the same kind of food. We have very similar tastes, you know? Usually, like, we're gonna find something to do together, and so, like, this made it so, in the same way that talking to the PCP made me literally cut all contact with everybody else online, talking to you has made me, like, cut back a lot of my contact with the PCP, you know? Because it used to be like, these are the only people I relate to, these are the only people I talk to, and now it's like, well, I relate to you even more, and you're even more relevant.
This has kind of changed, like, your status and role in the PCP, because you're, like, not as
I would
involved.
say so, but at the same time, my role in the PCP has always been weird because of the fact that I am the most famous guy, and also the most, like, I want to say the most busy. I mean, I'm not necessarily the most busy because Nate probably is even more busy than me, but, like, I've always been someone who is, like, very much at my own pace. Like, you have to really try to get me involved in something if I have not penciled it in my own mind. And even then, I will probably forget. Like, I have to be dragged and I have to be reminded, because I have so many ideas and I'm always trying to do something. So, like, it might be, let's say it's 3 p.m. and there's supposed to be, like, some kind of, this is why I never show up at the meetings, for instance. Like, the PCP has a meeting every week, and they go on for a fucking hour for some reason, even though there's usually, like, 5 minutes of actual, like, important conversation, because half of it is just re-deliberating and, like, belaboring the point of everything said. But, like, I can't show up at these meetings because they're not fun. I don't want to do them, and, like, I don't really care about the consequences of them. Like, ultimately, I will probably just be okay with whatever decision is made, and if I'm not, I'll just say something and be like, hey, why was this decision made? And they're always like, well, if you'd been at the meetings, you would know that, like, the decisions are made in the meetings. And I'm like, when did we vote that the decisions are made in the meetings? Like, the decision can be made right now. It can be retconned right now. I'm here now, and I say this is a bad idea. Let's rethink it, you know?
Yeah.
Why do we have meetings? This is retarded. Meetings are a huge meme. There's tons and tons and tons of writing out there about why meetings are literally worthless and a cancer, and, like, like that meetings are a terrible blight on society.
They cause a whole lot of extra, like, stress for the organization too. Like, I was in a sorority, and there's so many different, like, levels of hierarchy in, like, Greek life. Like, each person has a certain role, and then there's, like, E-board that is, like, the highest judicial power in the organization. And, like, when you have, like, a group of 10 people, and then you have, like, all these different, like, levels and all these different meetings for specific things, it just gets super convoluted, and like, it's a waste of everybody's time usually, because, like, if there's an issue, then, like, people should meet the issue as they arise. Like,
right. I think to switch gears on this conversation, because you just gave me an idea of something to talk about. Like, so something I do admire about Nate, and I'm kind of jealous of, is that he has like a very clear idea of what he wants his life to be structured like. Like, he's a man who, I think he knows exactly what a day or a week or a month is meant to look like in his life. And he has a very clear idea of what he's out to accomplish, like what he wants his career to do. And that is all stuff I lack heavily. And it's because I think that I want there to be more structure in my life. But the problem is that what would be structure for me is not like the typical things that people structure their lives around. Like, for instance, a 24-hour circadian rhythm, or like having a job that's between this hour and therefore everything has to be planned around that. Like, or doing a certain number of things in a certain amount of time. Like, every time I try to give my life more structure, it falls apart because it's never thought out enough. It's always like, oh, I'll give myself the structure of I'll do one video a week and they'll always be posted on Saturday. And then it's like the way that my work actually happens doesn't make sense with that.
Yeah.
It's just me arbitrarily coming up with something that sounds good on paper, but in practice it doesn't actually make sense. And I've never spent enough time just like sitting down and like looking at the way I naturally do things and trying to craft structure around that, you know? Because there are certain things, like, you and I occasionally do a great job of staying in the gym every other day. And usually when we falter in that, it's because the rest of our life is so unstructured that something else takes over its place. But, like, I have no problem with going to the gym every other day. It makes sense in my life. Like, it's the right amount of time between gym visits because it gives you time to recover. I always feel good. I'm always like, you know, it's never a problem. It's just that we stop doing it for other reasons. It's never because the gym is a bad idea. It's always because, like, we just planned the day badly or something. Or, like, we were just too into something else. Or we just didn't have the strength of will.
Yeah.
But, like, so if the rest of things were structured correctly, this wouldn't be such a this wouldn't come up so often, because like we will literally be going every other day for like 2 weeks doing real good, and then like something comes up and it just totally throws a monkey wrench, and once you miss it once, it's really hard to get back on the wagon. Like when you don't have that clear, yeah, we've been doing it on time, then it's just like, well, we already missed 2 days, so why not miss another 2 days, you know? Like so I really, and I've been talking about, I've been talking lately about something that's like a component of this, and now I'm realizing I need to make it a bigger, more all-encompassing version. Because lately I've been talking a lot to you and Tom about how I want to like take a few days to restructure all of my technology, where like I want to go through all the tech I have and just be like, what needs to be upgraded? How do I get off the Google infrastructure? Like, what are the sites that I should be using? What are, like, you know, what's the best CPU my computer could have for what I do? What is the best browser I could have? What is the best search engine I could have? What are the best things I should have on my bookmarks? What, like, should I be replacing Twitter with as something I can read every day that doesn't take that much time but isn't vapid horse shit that does nothing for me? Like, I just, like, and here's an example of what I'm talking about. This isn't the answer, but it's close. I literally, while I was taking a shit earlier, Googled, how do I find what to read? And I found an article about a guy saying how he finds what to read. And he's like, I use this app called Flipbook that, like, basically it's kind of like Pinterest but for articles, you know, or for news. Like, you just give it categories of things you care about, and it gives you news stories related to that are in these sort of bite-sized chunks. But like this particular article, most of what he got was through Twitter. He has like a bunch of apps that are hooked into Twitter, and it's like this whole infrastructure around finding things on Twitter. And I'm like, I don't want to be in the Twitter infrastructure, but like clearly there's an answer. Is there like, should I be on Steam it, you know? Like, should I be on fucking, like, WordPress and actually have, like, a custom... Because WordPress has the ability to, like, you know, use it as, like, a social media RSS feed, you know? Like,
alright.
There's gotta be something.
Off topic, but Phanpy is one of the cutest Pokemon ever.
Yeah, Phanpy's pretty fucking adorable.
Really adorable.
And Donphan is also underrated as fuck.
Yeah, Donphan is really cool. He was like one of the first Gen 2 Pokemon revealed.
Yeah, and he could fucking roll. He was awesome in fucking Pokemon Stadium's minigame where you can roll around as a Donphan.
He's pretty, like, good, too, like, competitively.
Yeah? I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
What an underrated Pokemon. Anyways. So that was something I've been talking about. It's like updating all my tech, updating, like, the infrastructure of how I do things. But I think the macro category of that is to also organize just my whole life in that way. And it's not a matter of, like, because I think that the trap I fall into is that I think of it as I have to make a schedule. And it's like, schedule is not the problem. The problem is that I need to make it so that there's a natural progression of things throughout the day that I can keep track of. Because my biggest problem is I lose the plot. I get bored and I lose the plot. I forget what I'm supposed to be doing, you know? Like, I get into a place where one day I'm like, I'm gonna play a video game for 10 hours, and then at the end of those 10 hours, I don't remember who I am anymore. Like, I don't remember what was going on yesterday, I don't remember what's supposed to be happening tomorrow. Like, September was supposed to be Patron month, and the reason it didn't happen is that I just couldn't come up with any ideas for it. Like, I had the idea that, like, okay, in September I'm gonna focus on the Patreon, but then, like, I couldn't, like, really figure out what I wanted to do with it, and it's because I kind of need to just rethink the whole structure of, like, how does the Patreon interact with my life, you know? And, like, think about that, and I haven't had the chance. And then I was also trying to worry about, like, alternative revenue sources, which mostly came down to IM Games, and then, like, working on building IM Games has been, like, my main focus. And as a result, it's like everything else that was also supposed to be going on has completely fallen by the wayside because I've been playing Crosscode for 25 hours trying to write a video about it, you know? So it's like, this is where the lack of structure becomes a problem, is when there's just so many things going on that it's a clusterfuck. And there ought to be a way. It shouldn't be a schedule. It's not like, oh, play 2 hours of Crosscode a day. Like, that will not work. That's not natural. But, like, to create an ebb and flow where there's, like, a sensation of, this is the first thing I do in the day, this is the next thing I do in the day, and, like, if this thing doesn't get done, where does it get pushed to, you know? Like, how much time is dedicated to each of these things, not in hours, but in, like, mental energy, you know? And I think there's a way to create a flow that will make sense. And, like, it would really come down to me doing something similar to that list, the list of, like, what media I want to consume, but, like, as what media do I want to create, you know? Like, culling all the shit that in the back of my head I think I have to do but isn't really all that relevant, and making it into the list of things that I have to do. So here's, for instance, a good example of something that's gotten lost in the shuffle. My book Fixed That For Ya. So Fixed That For Ya is a book I wrote in July. I had started work on editing it, and it would have been, I could probably edit the entire thing in a day, but it would take all day if I wanted to do that. And I have not had the energy and time to dedicate to do that. Ideally, I could just do a chapter every day, or, you know, whenever it fits into the flow, and have it done pretty soon. But I just haven't really thought about where can I fit this into my life? Where can I put editing this book in? Because it didn't get done in August because I was doing a video every day all month. And then I kind of gave myself the gratification of soft releasing it to my patrons. Because I couldn't fucking take it. I couldn't take the information not being out there because it was all I was thinking about. So once it was out, I was able to, like, put my mind past it and focus on making a video every day, you know? But, like, there's been no time in September that was, like, optimal. Also, how they marketed Director's Cut. Like, that should not even take long to do. I just don't know where to slot it in. Because, again, everything is such a clusterfuck. And, like, playing Crosscode feels more important You know? So, like, yeah, this is what I mean. How do you feel about all this?
I think that games, you know, make you lose, like, your sense of reality and your sense of time and your sense of self.
I mean, any media does it when you engage for too long.
Yeah.
Like,
but I think games are designed in particular to, like, take up
you away.
so much time and to, like, take you so, like, away from everything. And I think that's, like, why there's people play them.
Yeah. I feel like there's definitely a place for games in my life, and like even long ones. It's just a question of like keeping track of the narrative while doing it. Like a lot of people, they just schedule time, like the weekend is when I play video games. You know, like I've had friends who, you know, who work every day and they don't, like, they might come home and play video games, but they'll play like a fighting game, right? Like fighting games don't really take you out of your life that much because you can just stop and start whenever you want.
You don't get super invested in fighting games, like,
right? Because like if
you get invested in a match,
if you try to like Tuesday night, you come home from work, you throw on a JRPG, like, first of all, you're gonna end up wanting to play it all night because you're gonna get sucked in and you're gonna have that feedback loop that keeps you playing for like 10 hours. And then when you wake up the next morning, you're gonna feel completely drained because it's like you've switched lives. You know, it's like you've gone back to being human as opposed to being games. And there's this disconnect. And like, I think that kind of game is healthier to like save that for the weekend when you can just for 2 days utterly, like, you know, dive into this. And like, it's not something you should do every weekend because it's a lot, you know? And I think that it's easy to get into the mindset of like, I have to play every game, but like most games are trash and you're not meant to play. You're only meant to play the ones that are for you, you know? You're meant to play, I think you'll get a lot more out of a game if you play one that is specifically made like with you as an audience member in mind. And like, I go through my Steam queue all the time and I'm always just looking at the games and going, this is like tangentially close to something I would play, and that's not enough. Like, just being
if you're gonna dump
kind
your
of
time
like,
into it,
yeah, it should be all you know? It should be like, it shouldn't be, oh, I'm gonna play this because it looks okay. It's like, I'm gonna play this because I feel as though, like, Crosscode is a game that I literally looked at it and I was like, this is the most Digibro game imaginable. Like, this is something that anybody who really understood my taste in games and had played this game would be like, you have to play this game, you know? I mean, I literally was sold on it from the fucking Steam page. Like, it happened to have come out, like, that hour that I was on Steam, and it was on the front page, recommended for you, and I clicked on it immediately and was sold on it immediately, you know? Like, that's how much of my type of thing it was, and it was like a beautiful feeling because I had spent, like, a week trying to find the perfect game to dedicate my time to, you know? And I had almost found it in another game, which will go unnamed because I still might get back to it later for my next big I Am Games JRPG project. But that game had a really repetitive segment that pissed me off, and it took me out of the experience. But anyways, yeah, I just think that I should have, like, the way I've been approaching playing Crosscode, I've been playing it for like probably 4 days now.
Yeah.
I think, like, notwithstanding the day that we were at the Ren Fair, because I didn't really play much that day. So
no,
like,
we just like went to the Ren Fair and then went to sleep.
So we'll say like 5 days total if we include the couple hours I probably played that morning before the Ren Fair.
Is that what people call it, the Ren Fair? Like,
yeah, Renaissance Fair.
I know,
Ren
but
Fair.
like, I've never heard anybody call it a Ren Fair.
I have. In
Like,
something. In some kind of show or something.
I mean, I'm cool.
I've definitely heard
I'm
it.
cool with the abbreviation.
Yeah.
It's just most people like say Renaissance.
I mean, like, Ben was insistently calling it King Richard's Fair every single time.
Yeah.
But anyways, Yeah, like, so I've been playing it for like 5 days, and it's funny because I haven't ever sat and just done like an unbroken chunk of it. It's always been like, you know, a few hours here, a few hours there. And the reason I was playing it that way is I didn't want to feel like my life was being consumed by this game, but ironically, it's made it more like that. Because, like, my total time on it is 25 hours. I could have done that in a day and a half if I had just sat and played it, like, unbroken, you know, for the whole time I was awake. And, like, ultimately the game would have taken 3 or 4 days and I'd be done with it, you know? And, like, yeah, it would have utterly consumed my life for those 3 or 4 days, but then it would have been over. And instead, it's like, you know, now that it's encroaching on the 5th day and I'm halfway through, it's like, uh-oh, you know, like, this is going to be taking up parts of my day for a while, and because I tend to do things in big unbroken chunks, it's like, when am I going to get to do the next thing, you know, if I'm still playing this game?
Yeah.
You know, like, I took time off from the game to go and write a Fooly Cooly video, but, like, with Fooly Cooly Progressive, like, we were watching it in chunks in between this other stuff, and then, like, you know, at some point I finally just had to be like, okay, well, you know, I have to do this because Devu needs work before the end of the month, so let me just sit down for a few hours and just churn through this Fooly Cooly thing, you know? But, like, I want to launch into another... I just really want to make a big project, as I said before. And why is this happening again?
Because I'm battling these trainers. I think I can, like, level up my guys. I think this is how it works.
Well, I'm basically out of stuff to talk about
boy.
now, so...
They start at, like, level 16 and level 15.
Oh, that's horse shit. You start off the game with higher level Pokemon than that. What's the point? Is this just to train your, like, Lobies, maybe?
Maybe.
Well... When are they gonna make it so you can run in Pokemon battles?
In the Pokemon battles?
Yeah, like run away from them and come back. Why has that never been a thing you could do?
I don't know. I was like getting worried though, because like all the Pokemon I were fighting were like level 40, and I'm not close to level 40. I mean, I will eventually get there, but...
Is it just because you've been trying to train too many different guys at the same time?
I think it's because I'm trying to like... Well, I'm trying to de-shadowfy all of the Pokemon, to purify them all. So my team has been switching out, and...
Well, are you ready to end this sesh?
Yeah, I'm ready.
My eyes hurt, and I have to fucking
hungry.
pee. I'm also hungry. Well, that's it for this episode, because now we're just sitting here like,
Oh, it's an Abra. You teleport with an Abra.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Do you have an Abra?
No,
Or
it's
is,
that
oh,
Abra.
okay. That's neat.
I'm gonna save.
Alright. Peace out, everybody.
Maybe I'll do the challenge run on my own time to level up my team a little.
That'd be cool.